Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, I'm chatting with Chandler Copenhaver, Director of Business Development, Sales and Partnerships at CrowdOx, a leading Kickstarter Pledge Management software company. He's had the opportunity to work on more than 1,700 campaigns from all categories since 2015, including many from the tabletop game industry. Chandler, welcome to the Binge.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. The one thing I really wanted to do when we started this podcast was at some point get one of the pledge management companies on here. And one thing I thought was natural was CrowdOx. One thing that we've seen just in some of the recent interviews we've done is there's been several people that have used you. And I thought, hey, I know I've used a pledge manager in the past, and why not talk to CrowdOx and see what it's all about, and have you really explain to our audience what a pledge manager is and kind of what makes you guys different and so forth. So once again, welcome. I thought we'd start by just explain what a pledge manager is.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's an important thing if you're looking at crowdfunding. It doesn't matter if you're going to be a backer or you're going to be a creator. A pledge manager is kind of a term that's been created. Really, each backer that participates on a Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign, kind of the two primary platforms.
Yep.
They are putting out their details and basically pledging and supporting that project. But the collection of that information on the back end and then the fulfillment process that the creator has to go through can be pretty difficult. It can be a difficult challenge, especially the more successful you are. You're compounding the amount of work that goes into managing and all the details, and so a pledge manager's main role is to ease the burden for the creator. And it does that in various ways. Probably one of the key ways that it does that, kind of the most basic, most important, is based around specifically shipping and gathering shipping details from the backers, potentially doing the charges, the processing, the payment for shipping, which has become kind of a growth. There's a lot more campaigns doing that. Those are some of the key aspects of that. And for a lot of people that are unfamiliar with like what that means, what that looks like, I guess one way to look at it is imagine Salesforce or some other CRM, a customer relationship management software.
Sure.
That's what CrowdOx is for a Kickstarter campaign.
Now, we're going to get kind of under the hood on CrowdOx in a little bit, but I thought I'd start by asking you to kind of explain how you got into CrowdOx and kind of what your role is and how CrowdOx kind of came to be in the first place. It's relatively a young company.
Yeah. CrowdOx, we've been around, I think, edging on 6 years soon. We've been around for not a crazy long time. Our entrance into the market is a little bit paralleled to our clients, actually.
Yeah.
It's kind of unique in that when we got started back 2014, CrowdOx was originally founded by Nathan and Aaron. And there are two original co-founders. They are also our main web developers. So they're the guys that built the amazing software we have and made it look amazing. One of their brothers was actually creating a Kickstarter campaign for a board game, actually. And so at the genesis of CrowdOx, they had this board game that they at that time, back in 2014, there weren't a lot of options. Some of the other platforms that are now much bigger were really new, and so anyway, they kind of built it for their own use, and from that process said, hey, we have something that might be really helpful to a lot of these other creators. Let's see if we can really extend that to help other people eliminate a lot of the problems that they were facing. And Kickstarter originally was designed for indie projects and small projects. And when you consider a campaign that has 300-400 backers, maybe less, it's not as challenging to manage, right? Even the fulfillment's not that bad because you can put 300 boxes in your garage and you can ship them out at your leisure.
Yeah.
But when you start to kind of accelerate to higher levels and you have some of these campaigns have 1,000 upwards to, we've worked with some campaigns that have like 30,000 backers, right? Like,
That's a
what
lot
do
of
you do at
backers.
that point? Yeah, it's a completely different element. And so, um, so anyway, we knew that there was a need that this solved for some of the campaigns that we had run. And um, and, and so anyway, I personally, I got involved with CrowdOx because I was working with other creators. I've been full-time working with campaign creators, consulting, and doing different things since about 2015.
Okay.
And was working with some other agencies, and kind of just by happenstance. Well, first of all, I'm a huge backer. I've backed campaigns since 2012, starting with the Pebble Watch. And the original Pebble Watch. There's been a couple, right?
Yeah.
And I backed like 2 or 3 of them. But so I've been a huge backer for years, and um, found my way into working with creators, which was awesome. And anyway, I noticed CrowdOx worked on a couple of campaigns that I supported, and I thought it was fantastic. The experience for me as a backer was way better, and especially comparing to some other instances where it was really confusing and I had a hard time making selections and deciding.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I we connected together, and I was able to jump on board the team and help it grow. And at the time, we were really not known. CrowdOx was not a known tool, and we only worked with maybe a couple hundred creators. And since then, we've worked with thousands more and been able to really make a dent in the industry, which is something we're pretty proud of, but also excited for, because it allows us to there's so many more backers and creators that are happier and
Yeah.
not struggling as much.
Now, how big is this company? Is it just the three of you? Is there a full infrastructure of people behind this, like in terms of customer service and so forth? Or
Yeah, we have a full customer service team in addition to our team. So we're a team of about 11 people right now,
oh, okay,
and
wow.
we're actually hiring a couple spots, by the way. But yeah, we've been growing, and we really intentional. As I mentioned, we're kind of parallel to a lot of our clients in that we started out of the garage, right? Like the genesis
Yeah.
of our company as well has been sort of out of the garage entrepreneurial way, and we didn't take on any funding, and so we've really kind of grown organically over the years.
Wow.
We're at a space now where our team is all still fully remote. Even without COVID, we were still fully
Wow.
remote,
Okay.
and have been since the beginning. Our team is scattered all across the U.S. I'm in Utah. We have team members, a couple more here in Utah, but then we have others that are in Virginia and Florida, and then we have one of our customer service people that is in Barcelona. So we're
Wow.
technically a international company.
There you go.
But yeah, that was intentional because it allowed us to really keep lean. We're really lean and very. We work hard to try to do our best, and we don't have unlimited resources at our disposal, and so we're careful and lean, and it's actually served us really well.
That's part of the challenge, I think, with indie developers when they're hiring a company like yourself.
Hmm.
They need help. You're an extension of their team, and I know from personal experience, it's really, really important to have it feel like a team, right? So it's
Yeah.
not feeling like you're just using like a web interface, but there's
Hmm.
actually people behind there. If you have questions, there's people that can help you through that. There's customer service reps and so forth. So
Yeah.
it sounds like that's kind of what you guys do, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, CrowdOx, we've really designed the software to be very user friendly. So a creator can get in, they see their launch guide, which is just a checklist of items that walks them through what to do. Because most of us are newbies at this, and even if we're not new at it, like every campaign feels like fresh challenges. Like it doesn't matter how many you've run, it's just a whole set of new fresh things. And so
Sure.
having memorized how this process works is not something we expect people to do. And so we've got a lot of built-in things that help them process through that experience of setting up the system, and going through that the step by step there. But key to that, like you mentioned, is our client success team, which they do a fantastic job. It's actually one of the top rated parts of CrowdOx is that we have a lot of people say, oh my gosh, it was so amazing working with your team. And that's, I can't take credit for that. And I just, all the credit goes to them. They do a really great job.
Now, how does it split the business between Indiegogo and Kickstarter? Like I know
Mm,
on the board game side, it's
yeah,
predominantly Kickstarter that's
correct.
used for the microfunding. But since you guys do other categories as well, how
Mhm.
does that split for your company?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, Indiegogo is a smaller percentage overall.
Yeah,
Definitely, we're probably more like 70, 80%, maybe more than that for Kickstarter campaigns. There's but it's interesting, yeah, categorically you have these different things happen where, like, for example, comic books are actually bigger on Indiegogo than they are Kickstarter, and in general, and there's more launches there. And it's the reverse for board games, right? The same is
yeah,
with technology products. Like there's a lot of tech products going to Indiegogo,
big time. Yeah,
and that's some of the infrastructure that Indiegogo is intentionally built around that. And so, but yeah, we work with both heavily, and we. I would say my heart's a little bit more in Kickstarter, just because I've personally backed hundreds more campaigns there.
sure.
But we actually know the teams at both companies, and we work well and integrate with both of them.
Now, what percentage of your business would you say is tabletop games or board games?
hmm So initially, it was actually very small, fractionally
Hmm.
small, just because in general. Uh, so it's a bit of a hard of our industry to get into, and what I mean by that is we are by nature, especially tabletop gamers. Because I am one, we face to face is really important, right?
Yeah.
Being able to sit down and play a game is really key with a person. And so when we first started to really try to interact with, connect with the tabletops community, it was not to say it was, people were apprehensive per se, but it required some additional steps. And we attended a lot of conventions and started to make personal relationships with people, and that really was fundamental. It was really key to being able to work with more campaigns. And so now at this point, we're working with it's actually one of our biggest segments for sure, and we're probably, I would say, maybe 60-70% of our clients are tabletop creators.
I just
All of the
gonna
games you see behind me are clients of
I was
ours.
going to say, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, I know there's an audio podcast that goes out after this, so people can't see what I see, but you've got quite the impressive collection of games on these shelves behind you. And that's cool that all those are games that you guys have been involved with.
hmm
That's incredible. I'm going to actually show a page in a second to people who are watching the live feed
Cool.
to see some of the actual campaigns you guys are involved with. I do want to say that Rob McBride is listening in
Yeah.
live here, and he
What's
said,
up, Rob?
he said your input and support was a determining factor for him choosing CrowdOx for his campaign and Pledge Manager. So he wanted to
Cool.
extend thank you. Rob Bruner, who's also tapping in here live, he's the one that said make sure we talk about those that shelfie kind of behind you there. So that's pretty cool. So for people that are just starting the process and they're looking at getting a pledge manager, so they're sold. They realize, you know what, this is pretty complicated on the back end. And I'm actually a little sidestep from a
hmm
personal experience. I've done a couple Kickstarter campaigns now, and although Kickstarter is really great, it's very intuitive, it's very simple to set up. The one area I personally feel that they fall short is on the pledge manager side. So there is an integrated survey you can send out. You get to send it out once and
hmm
once only. So you better
Yep.
make sure it's right.
hmm
You collect all the addresses, and then it's up to you to go and kind of figure out shipping from there. I've done a campaign where I've used a pledge manager. I've done a campaign where I've done fulfillment on my own. Certainly, fulfillment on your own is conducive to much smaller pledge numbers because
Yeah.
you are literally the person that's having to organize all that information. People change their addresses. So between
hmm
when the campaign closes
Yeah.
to the point when
Way
you're
more than
actually
you think.
shipping, people say, "Oh yeah, I want to change my address," or you ship it and
Yeah.
it doesn't get to them. They say, "Oh, I moved. I forgot to tell you."
Right.
So these are all the things that I know that the pledge managers like yourself help with, right? They really shoulder that
Correct.
load. There's a cost, obviously, that comes along with that. Can you take us through kind of the model, like
hmm
how the cost model works if someone was going to sign up with CrowdOx? How would that work?
Yeah. So the way that it works with CrowdOx, from the beginning we knew that um, we needed to provide an affordable solution, because at the end of the day, most of these Kickstarters aren't pulling heavy profits. The whole model of Kickstarter isn't really designed to try to be the main engine of generating company revenue and profits. It is a way to kickstart something. It is a way to gain and build a community, right? And so because we knew that that's the case, for us to also find a good balance in where where that charging happened, and so we charge on a per backer basis as the initial kind of charge to the project creator. This is because for us, each backer represents a certain amount of cost. For us to, as you mentioned, we verify shipping, and we typically do that more than once for many people. People that, they put in their information right after the campaign's over, and then, a year later when the product's about to fulfill, the creator can re-verify that address. And so this kind of two-step process, each time that's verified, there's a little micro cost or transaction to CrowdOx. And so we take those costs, server costs and customer service costs, and into consideration under the per backer fee, and we charge a flat 75 cents for every backer on the campaign. And then we charge 5% of the additional money that you can raise through CrowdOx. And we didn't talk about this much yet, but definitely a huge bonus and really kind of a major aspect for many people is that you can offer backers additional copies or products. You can offer them accessories and add-ons, and you can allow them to, we talked a little bit about charging shipping after the campaign to be more accurate. And we see a lot of, especially creators, you see some of them here that they've run lots of Kickstarters. So they'll have a catalog now that they can offer other games to kind of ship with that product. There's all sorts of nice things there. And so we charge a 5% charge on that additional revenue raised through CrowdOx. There is, I should mention as well, like with a lot of creators we work with tend to have volume in terms of number of campaigns and number of backers. And so with volume, we can also, we often make a reduction on our prices where we can on that per backer fee.
So if somebody's doing, say, 30,000 backers versus 100, there might be some wiggle room there, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
And what type of market, like I have seen emails come across my desk now from different campaigns that are being run, and it looks like they're authored by CrowdOx. Is this something you guys do as part of your service? Is there some kind of marketing tie-in, or can you talk a little bit about what that is? I see these the weekly bulletins that go out, and talk about here's some campaigns of the week and so forth. I've seen.
Okay. Yeah. So we do have a newsletter where we feature campaigns. We just hit over 100,000 subscribers across all of our categories. We have 2 newsletters that go out every week. One for the tabletop. We kind of thinking of it as like the geeks and gaming kind of a category, right? Because we also have comic books and video games in there. And that goes out every Thursday, and we have another one that goes out every Tuesday that's kind of covers all the other categories, mostly design and technology and fashion. But those are we have those going out every single week and kind of showing off the main projects that kind of highlighting those. We tend to take an approach of this is something that comes included with our clients. So if they're a client of CrowdOx, we actually feature them there as a way of supporting them. There's no added cost to that creator for that. And for those that are not clients, we have a small fee that we charge for that to do that placement.
And who's the audience? Is it going out to literally anybody that's backed, done their pledge manager fulfillment through CrowdOx? Like, are they opting in if they've done the fulfillment?
Opt in. Yeah, it's a great question. They have to opt in to the newsletter. We follow all of the proper rules and GDPR and all of those other things. If we were sending out to all of them, I mean, we'd be in the multi-millions. But all the backers we've ever serviced. In the case of our subscribers, about 100,000 is all people that are backed a campaign and then said, yeah, I'd like to kind of see other cool things that are going on.
That's a lot of people. Yeah. Just for context, anybody that runs a Kickstarter campaign knows that within the first 48 hours, you get just blasted by people that are soliciting, saying, hey, I've got a list. I can get you in front of like 50,000 eyeballs with your campaign. And
right.
I can boost your campaign. And they're just trying to sell you stuff, right? And a lot of them are not super legit, I would say.
Yeah, I would say maybe like 5-10% of those are worth looking at.
But if you're using like CrowdOx and you've already got 100,000, that's a huge number. I want to share my screen here. I know the people listening through the audio podcast can't see it. So I'll try to describe what we're seeing here. But When we go to your CrowdOx page and
Hmm.
specifically go to your portfolio and I click on games and I
Hmm.
start scrolling, I'm seeing some really large numbers here. I see, a campaign that's got $7 million that's raised. I got another one here that's raised, $2.6 million. And then beside that, you have what percentage of that revenue went through CrowdOx. So in this
Yeah.
case, I've got, almost $2.6 million. CrowdOx is 1.9 million of that. Another campaign, 1.9 million, 1.1 of that came through CrowdOx.
Hmm.
Um, from seeing these numbers, it seems like CrowdOx is quite the tool to boost your sales. Now, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention probably some of this is collecting of shipping costs, right? Obviously.
Yeah, in some cases. Yeah, we have
Yeah,
some creators that will charge their shipping during Kickstarter, while others will charge shipping through CrowdOx. The benefit to that, just to speak to that for those that don't know, is that charging post-campaign means that you can be a lot more accurate to what those rates are. They will change. Like, it's guaranteed that they will go up slightly between the time your campaign ends and the fulfillment of the product. They go up like once or twice a year typically, just industry wide. And so we have a lot of creators do that for that reason. Some of them do it for specifically because they don't want to pay marketing fees, for example, on the
sure.
amount. So there's various reasons for it, but yeah. So some of that is shipping in some of the projects. But you mentioned a couple at the top there, really quite big. BattleTech was one of them, for example. And if anybody backed that campaign, they would see like they had a phenomenally crazy add-ons. They had so many add-ons. Like, it was a little bit mind
Yeah.
blowing. But what we've done with CrowdOx is really to specifically focus on giving the backers a better experience. And when I, as a backer, have more options, it's actually the same as a board game, right? In most games, if I have more options, I'm usually happier and I
Right.
usually have a better game experience. And the same is true with, kind of an online shopping experience. If Kickstarter is not designed, it's intentionally counterintuitive. It's intentionally not very intuitive, and because they don't want it to be like a store, a click and shop experience, because that would
Yeah.
be misleading. Um, but at the same time, we are kind of built to go through a certain experience when it comes to e-commerce and kind of buying online, and so we try to merge that experience a little bit for the creator. I'm sorry, for the backers.
One of the questions that came in through Graham McLean on the in the kind of the viewing area here is he
Hmm.
was asking, and it's a very legit question. If these are the successful campaigns, and if your shipping costs,
Yeah.
for instance, cost anywhere from 20 to 30%, and you guys have a campaign where you're representing 60% of the revenue generated, I mean that's still a huge boost in the
Hmm.
numbers. What if a campaign fails? What do the people pay then? Is there a cost if the campaign fails?
It's a great question. Yeah, CrowdOx, we don't charge a single thing to the creator until right before they're sending their surveys and sending those backer surveys out,
Hmm.
which means they have to have had a successful campaign. And so we've worked with tons of creators that they launched a campaign. They were really excited and hopeful. They would feature CrowdOx onto their campaign, which is a great way to tell people, hey, we have some of that figured out. We have
Yeah.
a plan, right? And then the campaign fails. It's awesome and crazy to me, but it's really cool that tabletop is one of the only categories that tends to relaunch. Like, if you look at any other category on Kickstarter, most of them fail and never try again. And I
Yeah.
absolutely love the fact that as a community, it's so encouraged, and there's so many creators that their first
Yeah.
campaign was a fail and their second or third was a success. And so, yeah, we don't charge a single thing for those campaigns, and we stand by for if and when they try again, and then help them at that point.
Yeah, it's and even some of the people listening of I know even Mike, for example, is the Queen Bee is a perfect example of this.
Yeah. Yep.
Didn't hit the target the first time around. Dust yourself off. What are the
Mhm.
learnings we have here? Okay, let's course correct. Let's go at it again, and then you crush it the second time around. So you
Yeah.
see that time and time again. One thing that was also being asked in the chat area there is, how has your business model changed? You've got these micro mini campaigns, and now you're dealing with some enormous campaigns. Have you guys adapted your model to accommodate that, or how have you changed your model to kind of fit that spectrum of campaigns?
It's a good question, and it actually kind of goes back to the pricing one a little bit. We have implemented some minimum charges. Um, as a company, when we work with a small indie project, little tiny campaign, we love serving those creators.
Yeah.
We also know that it's really investing in the future in a way, right? Because those creators, especially in tabletop, tend to come back. It's not their it's their first go at it, but they tend to come back time and time again. And so it's really important to us, and we do everything we can to help those campaigns, despite size. Um, we do have a minimum charge that we charge of $525 per
Mm,
project, and this is to make sure that we cover kind of internal costs, because even a little campaign has similar costs to a large one in that sense. So we do make some exceptions for smaller campaigns as well. And like I said, tabletops the only category that we tend to do that because of this kind of the whole mindset is completely different with
yeah.
this amazing community. There's a lot more support coming in. There's some really amazing Facebook groups and things that help the creators learn the process. You brought up Mike's campaign, Mike Bruner's campaign, the Queen Bee, which is awesome because like the game just got better, right? Like the
Yeah.
relaunch just made that game even better. I've been a fan of the game for a while. I've played it
Yeah.
early prototype, but yeah, that's it has changed a little bit, but for the most part, CrowdOx, we've tried to really balance those scales a little bit. So we work with a lot of the big publishers. A lot of them are launching, multiple campaigns, but we work with a ton of the little, one-off indie campaigns as well.
Now, with that minimum fee that you mentioned, the 525, is that applicable if somebody doesn't hit their target? So if they fail, or is even that there's no charge there, even if they fail?
Still no charge. Yeah, if
Oh
they
wow.
if they
Okay.
fail their campaign, there's no charge. The minimum just covers, as we talked about, the little incremental costs and things, the customer service, different fees like that.
And do you pick and choose can anybody use CrowdOx, or are you guys selective as to who gets kind of plugged in?
It's a good question. Yeah, we're not selective.
Yeah.
We doesn't matter the category. I've worked with some weird stuff,
Yeah.
but no, we're not selective on the size of the campaign or anything like that. As a company, we've tried to accommodate the growth. We've actually grown a lot in the last 3 to 4 months, which is a little bit surprising since we were expecting, that the pandemic would do something to that. But Kickstarter's been very healthy, and
Yeah.
which is it only makes sense to me because Kickstarter was created in 2008, right after a massive recession. Kickstarter was born, and I think that's true to most creators, that we go through this experience of like innovation. Some of the best innovation comes out of hardship, and so we see hardship happening, and people are like, okay, I can't control my job that now I can't go to, but I can go out and build something awesome and get that in front of other people. So we think that's awesome, and really there's a lot of hope in that.
What would you say is the biggest difference between your platform and other pledge managers out there?
It's a good question. I think so there's kind of three main ones that come up quite often. One is we do have a fair pricing model. It's not based on percentage of the total revenue that the campaign raises, which is a pretty key difference. We also as I mentioned before, we have a smaller team, and
Yeah.
that support is key. But a lot of people don't recognize when you actually have a small team of experts, it means that each individual tends to have a broad amount of experience. Whereas, if your team is too big or don't have a lot of background or experience, then they come to the table with little inability to kind of really support that project and that campaign. And so we tend to I see my job as that of a consultant, even though really I'm here to bring you CrowdOx and show it to you and maybe sell it. But the
Sure.
reality is my job is to actually help you be successful. And so we take that approach, and that's kind of how our culture is internally. But being a small team and being remote, that allows us to be pretty flexible to the needs of the creators. I'm on a lot of late night and early morning calls, right? Because I got a lot of like
Sure.
international clients. Um, The other aspect that is pretty important actually is the software itself. So the software speaks for itself in that it's very easy to use. It's very intuitive. It's we've been through it for the past 4 or 5 years, 6 years of just kind of grinding through things that don't work, and going off of feedback of creators as well as backers. Actually, our backer feedback has influenced things probably more readily,
Mm.
just because if it's not working for them, then we have a problem, right? We need
Yeah.
it to be a good experience for the most backers. And so I'm always surprised. In fact, I was working with where we recently did the I'm gonna do a little shout out with the Gamelin Games guys with their Tiny Epic Pirates campaign.
Ah,
Awesome
yes.
project. They're doing phenomenal. It's been a really good experience. And Nathan Hatfield, who I was working closely with to set that up, he's like, I don't think I've ever used CrowdOx, and I don't know. And it's kind of going back and forth. We kind of looked in the database. Turns out he had backed more with CrowdOx than any of the other services that he had used,
Sure.
and so it's kind of a little bit eye opening for him. And I think that's key because we actually don't want backers to necessarily be too. They don't need to be caught up in the fact that they're using one system versus another. It needs
Sure.
to be a smooth and quick experience so they can get done what they need to do. And so we've made a lot of effort into doing that.
I can tell you from personal experience, both on the working with an interface is critical. The last thing you want to be doing as a developer or a publisher is just trying to figure out software when it should be more intuitive. And likewise with your backers, I ran into cases where backers were confused, right? Like they're
Hmm.
saying, "Okay, I got this thing. I'm not really sure how to, do this,
Yeah.
this, and this." And they'll get into details. It's important, right? The interface is the gold, right? It really
Hmm.
is. So where do you guys go from here? I mean, we've blasted through this half hour. It's been amazing, and thank you so much for your time. But
Yeah, it's been fun.
where do you guys go from here? What's the next kind of stage for CrowdOx?
Yeah. So, I mean, nothing's really changed, like I said, with like the virus or any of those other things. For us, we are just plowing forward. We are working with more and more creators, more and more campaigns. And so a lot of that's not necessarily changing. We're just kind of continuing forth on that. We are currently in the process of building out a new community. We're wanting to actually interact a little bit more with creators and with backers, and so we've created a new Discord channel
Oh,
that we've done some play tests for new designers, and we're going to be doing some tournaments and contests. We have one coming up. I already brought up one company that at the end, kind of at the end there, I won't spoil this surprise, but you could probably connect some dots that we're doing a big tournament coming up and some giveaways. So we're trying to find ways to really engage both sides of that community, and so that's something we're really excited about as well. That we think if nothing else, will just be fun. And we're working right now on additional infrastructure in our system where we are also supporting a lot of especially bigger publishers, but we're supporting doing CrowdOx campaigns. And so these are basically pre-orders where someone who let's take a publisher, for example, that Indie Board and Cards or Eagle Griffin Games, right? Where many of these publishers tend to run maybe 3 or 4 Kickstarters a year at the most. You can only do so many. It's a lot of time and energy,
oh
especially the
yeah.
energy part. But they end up launching 10 to 20 games a year. Even small publishers fit into that, right? It's not just a big publisher thing. But a lot of these games or products that don't necessarily merit a full Kickstarter campaign, but they know they're going to make it anyway. We're essentially doing a pre-order for those.
Okay.
Um,
Wow.
and so we've had a couple of big successes on that. The Rococo Deluxe, for example, was one that was done not too long ago, did great. They actually pre-ordered 4 or 5 games at once, which were all games that were coming to market, they were making in the first place. And so it was a way for us to kind of help them get the word out and really build a campaign around it. We have a few more coming very soon, and we've done quite a few big ones. In fact, another big one that people would recognize is Forgotten Circles, which was the Gloomhaven expansion.
Yep.
We worked with those guys to do that. They pre-ordered like 13,000 copies
Wow.
before they shipped out, which was pretty amazing. Um, So anyway, yeah, that's something that's we're trying to really round out our how we can help serve creators, and because you go print 5,000 copies to fulfill 3,000 backers on a Kickstarter. Well, what do you do with the other 2,000, right? So
Yeah.
we're actually working right now on ways to kind of help on the back end too, with some e-commerce and some other things like
Oh,
that.
wow.
But those are still in the works.
So how do people find you? So if they want to go and check out they're saying, you know what, CrowdOx is the one for me. How do they find you?
Probably the fastest, easiest way, and most people will recognize, is that I'm on Facebook. You can just find me, Chandler Copenhaver. Send me a message there. An email is also easy. You can do just sales@crowdox.com,
Okay.
or Chandler@crowdox.com. Either way works.
Or even just go to crowdox.com. I'm sure there's a contact form
Yep.
even in
Yep, there's a
that page as
contact
well.
form you can fill out there. We have a little chat bot in there that you can kind of type your information into. Either way, whatever works for me. As I mentioned before, to us, kind of establishing relationships is pretty key
Sure.
to us as well. And so, we like making friends.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And for anybody listening, crowdox.com, get all the information you need there as well as contact information. Chandler,
Yeah, thanks for having me.
take care. Cheers.
See ya.